My guest today is Tura Arutura. He is an accomplished communicator, multidisciplinary performing artist, social activist, and dance teacher. In the first part of my conversation with Tura, we went back to his childhood memories and experiences which shaped who he is now. We talk about his grandmother, his second mother, who was a healer, a storyteller, and she loved to sing. She was Tura's biggest influence and critic in his creative life. Tura mentioned the importance of ritual and how crucial it is to nurse and look after loved ones who are passing. At the age of 6, he knew he wanted to dance by witnessing an athletic dancer with a great energy, which he found infectious. Tura notes that the oldest art form is dancing. The way of understanding our body is through dance, through movement. And when we are disconnected from our body and soul, when we are not free, we can't dance. We have a lack of emotional development. We talk about how now it is time for artists to create their own platform, to speak up and present their work without needing to conform to what gatekeepers might prefer. We went through Irish history and decolonization. We talk about the importance of feeling emotions as a man in a toxic world. Men are emasculated, which makes it difficult for them to be expressive. We also talk about redefining what masculinity means and the importance of matriarchy in that process. We also dive into rituals, mythology, and keeping the true essence of who one is. We start our conversation with Tura talking about growing up in Zimbabwe. Tell us about growing up in Zimbabwe. How was that experience for you?
Zimbabwe. I was talking to somebody yesterday about this experience, and I was saying to him, you know, man, I grew up like the way my ancestors grew. I lived like the way my ancestors lived part of my life up until I was 5. I lived in a mud hut. I lived traditionally, getting water from the borehole, hunting, and experiencing hunting with my uncles. I was born to a 16-year-old mother.
Yeah.
So I was raised by my grandmother as a child. And so my uncles, who were 6 in number, I grew up with 6 uncles, and they were my brothers.
Wow.
And we did everything together. Yes.
Tell me more about your grandmother. Who was she?
My grandmother, she breastfed me, and she was my first mother. And so I learned to call her grandmother. At a certain point in my life, I made a conscious decision. I'm going to call her grandmother. And I started calling her grandmother, and then I got used to calling her grandmother. But she was the most forgiving person. She was so forgiving, even to people who hurt her. She would still entertain them. She died in October last year, and I was very close to my grandmother.
Yeah.
And she taught me everything that I know. And she was a healer. That's a quality. She used herbs, but she also talked to people. People used to come just to get advice from her. And she was she was very short, and she was very funny. My granny liked to tell stories and she'd give people names to go with their character. And she loved singing, and she would sing traditional songs from her grandmother. In fact, I have produced over the years has been in some way influenced by her.
Wow.
She was.
So she was your biggest influence?
I would say she is my biggest influence. I'm now striving to be like my grandmother.
That's beautiful. So it must be very difficult for you to lose her.
I think losing her is not so difficult. I know that death is part of life, but it was the circumstance that she died that was not very pleasant. I was stopped from seeing my grandmother by my aunt and uncle, and they wanted to stop me because of their personal issues with me. And they decided that by stopping me from seeing my grandmother, they would hurt me, and then they would force me to do what they wanted me to do. And I got the opportunity to feed my grandmother 2 days before she died. And nobody, and I fed her, and then 2 days later she died. And it was an honor to do that. And I recognized that honor, and she was giving me, it was almost like us saying our goodbyes. Because she always told me that if a member or someone you love is sick and is about to go to the other side, it is great to nurse them. She always said, no one nursed your mom, and I wish somebody had nursed her. And it was remembering that when I was seeing her for the last days, that I always remembered that I want to nurse my granny. I want to look after my granny. If I was a girl, even much more an honor and a pleasure, you know, but I forgot what your question was, Nasreen.
Just we were talking about your experience with your grandmother and when you lost her. So
yeah, we used to fight a lot when I was younger with my grandmother. I used to find her so soft. And I said, Granny, don't let people do that. Don't let. And then she says, oh, you know, this is, people don't know what they're doing sometimes. And it's the wind. She always said, sometimes certain wind catches them and they do these things and it's the wind.
Oh, that's an interesting expression. Wow.
The air sometimes, you know, like the air. It's the air that makes them behave like that.
Yeah.
Mamepo, she says, like winds.
So she wasn't just your grandmother or your second mother. She had also a deep connection with you. You were like a friend.
Friend. She was my best friend. And I brought her to Ireland in 2014 in September, and we hitched from Zimbabwe to Mozambique to Malawi and got a flight together. And before that, we had traveled from Zimbabwe and driven to the two of us to the place where she was born, so she could get a new passport, so she could travel to the UK, because it's difficult for Zimbabwean citizens to travel, but it's easier if you have a Malawian passport. So she was born in Malawi. So we did a 2-week road trip to get her a new passport. And that was an experience, in continent towards the end of her life. And I carried her and would make fun of this, you know, like very seriously. I'm just gonna carry you because that is the humor in our tradition. That she's like your wife, but not in the physical way, you know. And we joke, and you know, she'd say things like, "Oh, my husband, you've come. What have you brought for me?" You know. And would have humor, would have jokes. I would tell my granny anything. I wouldn't hide anything to her. I would tell her everything. And she was also my critic as well. She would tell me the way it was, and if I chose any other way, that would be my choice. But she would tell me the way, like a good friend would.
What is your strongest memory from your childhood?
My strongest memory. I remember feeding my grandfather when he had broken his hand, and I must have been about 3.
Oh.
And yeah, and I remember feeding him with a spoon. He had broken his hand and he couldn't eat. He had been beaten up, and then I have loads of vivid memories as being chased by white men on horses around about 4, and hiding, squeezing through a door to get into the house to hide, and hearing horse hooves around the house, galloping around the house, trying to find where my uncle and I had gone to and hidden. I have memories of the war, memories of a man getting stoned to death, and then a snake being thrown to make sure he was dead in the ditch, and then seeing this for days and flies gathering. Yeah, I have memories of being left alone at the age of 5, climbing through the window. But these are things that the things that I'm saying to you are things that I've worked and I'm working through, how I designed myself through my experiences. So I have those memories, like going to boarding school at the age of 7 and being the only Black children in an all-white school and not being able to speak English and learning to speak English in a year, and using certain techniques to try and learn English. Like I pretended to be sick, and while I was in the sick bay, I would ask the people in the sick bay how to say this, how to say that, how to say this. Because we were not allowed to speak our native language. If you spoke your native language, you'd be punished. You'd have a placard put on your chest to say, "I'm a monkey," and you'd wear this during break time. I've met of corporal punishment and being, you know, we call it whacked by the headmaster, the headmistress. I have memories of being mischievous in class, making people laugh and getting into trouble, and in class, having fun with my friends, and being a popular boy in the class for making people laugh and acting. I have memories of doing acting as a little boy. I guess the memories that I'm sharing with you, most of them are things that I have become.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I'm a bit speechless.
Sorry?
I'm a bit speechless.
Why?
It's a lot going through all those at age of 3, 4, 5. And how did you heal? I know that you're still here.
I'm still healing. And I've been thinking in evolving all the time and staying vulnerable and trying to expand to me and what I made it mean.
Trying to
understand.
Trying to understand.
Unpack what happened to me so that I can see how I made me.
So you were kind of a people person when you were in a young age.
Oh yes, I loved being with people. I loved making people laugh, jokes. Yeah. I loved making people laugh and seeing people enjoy themselves, and me being part of it is love about life. I think for me, that's when everything really comes alive, when everybody, we're doing something together and we're enjoying it together. Free.
Yeah. So how long have you been dancing?
I think I've been dancing since I was born. Since I was born, see, when my mother was pregnant, she was sent away, she was chased out of the house by my grandfather. And so I had to be given birth at my grandmother's uncle's house, her father's brother's house. And he was a famous shaman, famous for music and healing. And he was called Boroma. And Boroma was one of the best dancers. This type of music was just electric, and everybody would participate. And each member of the family, if it's like a death, a ceremony, everybody in the family would dance at the middle at some point. Everybody would dance at some point. And I remember sitting with my grandmother, and my grandmother telling me about everybody who danced. She would tell me their personalities on how they dance. She said, "Oh, look at them. They're this kind." And we would do it and we would laugh because it would be true of those we know. But once we observed those we know, and then those we don't know, we also use the same. So we understood. She taught me how to read the body with dancing and with the person, with the dancing. And so I always, one day in primary school, I was in grade 2. So that's P2, that's about grade 6. Age 6. I saw a dancer, and Tine was his name, which means what do we have? Tine. And he was dressed in this blue and white, almost like a big half white and half blue, but long cloth, almost like the way in like the traditional dressing in it's a religious coat.
Yeah.
And it's half, and he had beads. He was dancing, but he was dancing like upright on the ground. He was doing all sorts of things. And I remember I was just blown away by this man's athleticism and his energy. And I thought, I want to be like that. Yes, his energy was infectious.
That's very interesting. I noticed some people it's very difficult for them to shake their body or move or dance. I don't know, they're shy, but I think even their private space, they don't do that. Like I do dance crazy when nobody is around, and I just like it. But I know some people, it's not easy for them. Why do you think is that? Is it because they don't want to be vulnerable, or they're not comfortable with their own body?
That is it. And you know, there is something about repetition and how it quietens the noise in the mind. So when we do repetitive activities, they help recalibrate our soul, our spirit, our essence. And when we dance, I believe dance is the oldest art form before anything else.
Sure.
So when we are not dancing, we are not expanding those natural and opening those natural pathways to greater understanding of our body and its function and its dance that enables us to understand and to open up our body and understanding of our body. I guess in certain cultures, they've developed dance or movement in certain ways, you know, and I guess I was talking to a guy called Shosu Anyakton. He's from Connemara. He's one of the most extraordinary water, and he says to me,
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? He's one of the most
Shanos dancers. He's one of the most prominent Shanos dancers in the world. And when he moves, he just moves like water. His legs, they ripple like water, you know, when he moves and he plays to, I heard him play to a harp and he moved like water. The sounds of his feet and the harp were just flawless. And they say to me, us Irish people were a bit restricted, you know, we don't move, we're quite sexually frustrated as well, like, you know, we don't like whereas in African dance, I see the movement is so open and we came to the conclusion that is because Irish people are dancing outdoors. But that's another perception maybe. But people not wanting to move their bodies because they're not free. There's a disconnection with their mind and body and soul. So they cannot just let go their body because they are not free in a part of their being.
Is there any way to help them? I don't know, am I putting it in the right way, but
we have to make it okay to dance. We have to make it okay to move. We have to make it okay to move our bodies in any way without being reduced to the underdeveloped emotional understanding of movement. The lack of emotional development is only the problem. And if people can dance and see what their bodies can do and take their bodies to another level and their consciousness to another level, you know, dance yourself into a trance, feel what it is to be exhausted beyond and giving up the mind, just giving up what's going on in the mind, because that is just the problem, what goes on in the mind, moderated by this dysfunctional world, I would say.
Yeah, but I totally understand what you're saying, but sometimes I thought when I create or I dance or I sing, by just doing that, I free my mind.
Mm.
Because I'm just enjoying myself. I'm just into those movement, or when I draw, or when I sing. I'm not a singer, by the way, but
You sing. Everybody's a singer.
I know, but like, I mean, not a
You sing
professional.
your own way. You sing your own way.
I do like to make noises.
That's singing.
Is it?
That is sound.
Yeah.
And it's finding your voice and how to, because when I hear you talk and I hear the sounds and the way you talk, and I hear Persian nuances, you know, in your accent, and it's creating a sound picture that is honest to those feelings. And then that's one of the gifts that I believe I now have, where I can hear sound, but I can hear it in symphony.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. I believe that all of us can do whatever we want. We can sing, we can dance, we can paint, act, but the limitation we put on our mind, it just block us.
Yes. Yes. And I was asking somebody a few days ago, would the Jewish community in Germany allow their children to be educated by the Nazis? And no, they wouldn't. Nobody would allow such a thing. But in reality, the world order of education and knowledge, culture, expression, and exploration is actually defined by people who shouldn't and who don't even have the capacity to create. They just hoard, rob, and mass produce, but they don't create anything. And those who create are just kept in the outskirts, in the margins. But it's when those people in the margins realize that people in the margins, are actually the ones. We have to create our own spaces. And until we create our own spaces where we are doing things amongst like-minded people, like-spirited people, like-hearted people, then we can only lead by example, in the sense, you can't beat originality and authenticity. And the thing that we need to realize is that we are the power. We are the ones who are able to teach those who have lost that magic for one reason or another, that ability for one reason or another. It's just understanding that there's a separation between those who have been traumatized and those who traumatize.
Yeah. I do every day think that who really I am, my authentic self, because we have a lot of programming and conditioning that sometimes we act or react, and that's not who really we are. It's like getting a job that we don't like, but we are not coming out of it because we think we should pay our bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea that the Prussian style of education was employed in Prussia was because when the Prussians were building their army, they first used peasants, and the peasants wouldn't do as they're told. Once they got to the battlefields, they ran away. And the Prussians then decided that from an early age, we needed to train people to be obedient. and follow instructions. Stand in lines, stand in rows, march, and sit in rows. And this is your path. You do this when you're 6, you do this when you're 11, you do this, you go to school, and one shoe size fits all, because it's the army. It's preparing people to be obedient subjects. And unfortunately, some people have not realized that they can be creators, they can be godlike, we are godlike. We are made in the image of God, so we are natural creators. And this thinking is taken away when people are conditioned. And I guess artists, as Plato said, they don't make very good leaders because they're so idealist. They see the bullshit, because that is the art. That is the heart. The art is the heart, because we have to make sense of all the bullshit and be honest and real with who we are, what we are doing. And that takes a lot of introspection, a lot of looking within, a lot of exploration of yourself and identity and the world around you. And unfortunately, the majority of the people don't have that gift. It's been taken away.
So do you think then some of us just born with this personality, or this we are more free-spirited, or this is just because we went to school too?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see how I put it.
Somebody said to me, what do you call yourself these days? I call myself so many different things, just depending on the situation.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we are so many things. And who is anybody to put us into a little box?
Exactly.
And I guess it's accepting the multi-layers within ourselves, and also looking at the social norms, which I tell you, they're ridiculous, but just so that I appear a bit normal in this Western European normal, because if I was to be myself, I'd be considered probably crazy and and dangerous. I guess I've learned to be Afropean as well, because consciously I realize now when I'm being European, or when I'm using a framework of European philosophy, thought, I'm very conscious when I'm being African, but also I'm conscious when I'm centered, when I am myself, and I'm just drawing from the different sources of my humanity, whatever. And I am being true to my essence. I just draw different sources, but at the same time, I'm aware that sometimes people around me will perceive me in all sorts of ways, but that's their reality.
Exactly. So you answered already some of my question.
Mm-hmm.
Before you dance or perform, do you have any ritual?
I believe every dancer must have, I do. But my life is all about rituals. So they're just patterns. And these patterns, they're my conscious effort to raise my awareness, or to bring me to the place where I need to be to do what I'm going to do. So I have a series of things that I do before I dance. And I would say they're rituals. Yeah.
What has been the biggest challenge you have come across in your career so far?
The biggest challenge, I'll tell you, the biggest revelation was realizing that it wasn't about me at all. It wasn't about what I was creating. There's just a world that exists that excludes me. And no matter what I do, I'm not going to be included. So I stopped trying to be included. I'm not interested in integration anymore. I just want to be. And realizing that everything within the Western or the perceived North is designed not with me as the other. And I've had to grow myself as a global citizen and perceive myself as a global citizen, as part of a family of the majority, because really the people who are excluded, we are actually the majority. It's only a 1% that controls the media, which is the source of the vehicle for art. And realizing that we had to create new platforms ourselves. We have to create new industries ourselves. We have to create opportunities to do what we do ourselves. And that is not the government. In fact, the less I have from the government in my life, the better. And they're not there to look after me. And that I've realized to my own growth, that we are our own government.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's why I'm doing this, because I want to artists talk about their experience, the time they were vulnerable, or their authentic self, healing. And I think it's lacking. And you're totally right. We need to provide a platform for ourselves.
Yes, and I was in Dingle last weekend, and I met this guy called Cormac, and Cormac, he plays concertina, but he doesn't play concertina like the normal, like people play it in traditional circles. He plays a concertina like he's playing hip hop. Some of the people don't like it, but who cares? Even they know that he's shit hot, that he is so good that he can do that. He can do the traditional stuff as well, but he can play his concertina and make a room go wild. They said, one guy asked, I said, what do you think about Cormac? He says, well, I think his concertina is too bassy. And I said, you know, the young people, they love the bass, you know? Well, I think it's just a whole different way of playing concertina. And I said, it is. And he organized a concert on a beach with about 50 people, maybe 40 to 50 people. He provides the chairs. It's a private location. The people buy the tickets online. You only find out the gig because you bought the ticket. And he does a brilliant 1 hour session. He has a few dancers, and he makes his thing happen. He makes it happen. And we have to make things happen amongst ourselves as people, and not depending on this government or these structures. Between ourselves, we create the things or the platform of what we want to do and how we want to do it. Exactly. Because we don't need people who are really not even in our frame of mind. They're just wanting to tick boxes, you know? These people are not artists. It's like, you know, you've got politicians and people who don't create, making policies that affect people who create. I mean, it doesn't add up.
After this interview, give me the link for that artist. I put it in the
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you a link. I'll give you a link. You know, Ireland is a very, very advanced country, but also very, very young in its, not young, but it's the trauma of Ireland really makes it humane, more sensitive, and more connected to what is happening around the world. Irish people are connected with what's happening in Syria, in Palestine, in Africa. When Mandela was in prison, the Irish people were always at the heart of activism. So activism and fighting against colonialism and decolonizing is central to the Irish essence. And that's why I'm so aware why my ancestors brought me here, because I needed to complete the circle. And coming here has helped me to complete the circle. And I guess it's not just something that I tell myself to make myself do what I do every day, to make the decisions that I do every day, but I guess it's making being understanding of the journey that Ireland has gone through.
Yeah.
And the journey that my country, or the region of my country, has gone through. And then realizing that there is a common thread. Like there is something that makes us the same. And then once that connection happens, everything flows.
I do struggle with one thing here sometimes, and why men in Ireland are not very expressive. Why they don't express their emotion, or they...
When you emasculate a man, you know, emasculate?
Yes.
When you emasculate a man, his women and his children and his essence and his language, his heritage, his essence, you just rip the guts out of his soul. What does he have? And he goes into perpetual mourning and disconnected with the sounds of his natural instinct, the heart, the sounds of the heart, the language, the heritage. So there's a deep trauma, collective trauma in Ireland, which makes it that the men are emasculated to an extent. And you see it in African men, they drink the hell out. You see it in Native American men, they drink like mad. You see it in Aborigine, you know, all these drugs and alcohol. And so working class people have this experience, particularly in Ireland, where heroin and alcoholism and drug abuse and violence are the easy, not easy, but the more accessible ways of dehumanizing yourself. You see, they've been so successful in the job that now we can dehumanize ourselves. Once we become aware of how, as men, we can be empowered, we can empower ourselves. And this goes to African men. African men express themselves in some dysfunctional ways. Same with Arab men, same with European men. And it's understanding as men that the ground is shifted. Women have asserted themselves, and that we need the matriarch. We need the matriarch to make the circle whole. And until we actually realize the matriarch as men, we assert who we are as a family. And I don't mean family as in male, female, but I mean as a...
But how we could bring this awareness?
Celebration together. And have experiences together, and have examples together, and share together, and imagine, recreate what masculinity is, invent new masculinity, invent new ways of being masculine, without allowing society to, you know, and I say society with a small s, because the people that shape our opinion are not, you know, the majority.
You see, I believe that the feminine and masculine, let's call it energy, they work together. It's like a yin and yang. It's like a wheel. And if one part of this energy is blocked and is not moving, the other one is not going to move. So we work together. It's not like we are separate. We are not.
We're not.
Even as a woman, I do have a masculine side, and I do celebrate both.
Yes. You know, about 11 days ago, I came across this understanding why they practice FGM.
What is FGM?
Female genitalia mutilation.
Oh, sorry.
And also they also practice MGM. And I was asking myself, I see this new explanation. Disease is out, and you're safer sexually, and you're more healthy for men if you're circumcised. But that doesn't add up. And then I got deeper and I realized that men and women are born men and women. Both are born men and women. And society or this decided, okay, we are going to take the woman from the men off, take off the woman from the men, and take off the men from the woman. So you are now a woman. You don't have both. You're now a man. You don't have both. But we're born with both.
We're born with both.
We're born with both.
It could be sometimes some part of my femininity is stronger, and I operate from that side. Sometimes my masculine part become very strong, and I like it.
Yes.
And it doesn't make me any less of a woman.
No, it can't.
Yeah.
But you see, Irish women are powerful.
They are.
Yeah. Irish women, they have, you know, even in Catholicism, Mary is revered more than Jesus.
You're right.
Yeah, the mother of God. God as a mother.
Yeah.
You know, and it is the hidden ancient traditions of the Celtic people that are the true essence of who the people that call themselves British or Irish really are. I guess becoming comfortable, I know that the space and the spaces that I move in Britain, in Northern Ireland, that some people spiritually, they're still children, you know? And even in outlook and understanding of life, I would be considered probably a bit, I'm not going to use, maybe a bit, I'm not even open-minded, because open-minded, I think there's a different reality of life that must be coming from our inner self that is not being allowed by the Western environment that we surround us. It's fighting that over-exertion of European Western values and reality, and just keeping the true essence of who one is. That is the challenge. And I guess it's only possible when we're able to do those rituals that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. And
those rituals, they center us again, they bring us to that point. They bring us, you know, the conde, the caduceus, the snakes like this, the snakes.
Yes.
And the spine in the middle. and the blue snake and the red snake, the male and the female, and the staff in the middle is the spine. And the wings is how we're able to open up the top chakra, and so we can fly. So the Caduceus was carried by Mercury in ancient Greek philosophy. Mercury, to my belief, it's just my opinion, I think in Greek mythology, he is the strongest god because he can go to hell and he can go to heaven and he can transport messages. And he is the god of the artists, of the thieves, of the arts, the culture. So I guess in saying that, the reality is artists have that gift as long as they're willing to travel like Mercury. Sometimes you must go into the depths and then you know, reflect and come out into the heavens and reflect. And the life of an artist is not yours, it belongs to the universe. And it's just reaching that point where we can let go. And when we let go, then the universe can do its deeds. And then everything falls in place. Yeah. Without even trying hard.
It took me a long time to learn that because I was painting, taking picture, and I wasn't with people a lot. I thought I'm a very individual artist, but now that doesn't mean the meaning of my work changed. Mm-hmm. You're right, my work is not for me. Mm-mm.
It's getting to that point and then recognizing that point and then seeing, it's almost like, you know, when you get out of your body and you look at yourself and you observe your consciousness as an observer of yourself.
Yeah.
And you meditate, you know.
I know. It's a long journey.
It is a long journey.
I'm at the beginning of it.
Oh, you've made more, yeah, you know, I guess recognizing where you are, but I was talking to myself the other day, as I do, and I was saying to myself, how do you get to know what point you are in your personal growth? And I realized that I'm constantly unpeeling, but the only way I can stay sane is going to my child state, just going back to the little child, yeah. But to a safe place as a child, because some of the spaces are traumatic and they're hard. So I go to the place where the world was my oyster. And I call it time traveling. And we can time travel when we can connect with our young self or ourselves in all, then we can connect with all humanity, because we can go to that place and we can be in the zone without losing. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think that we should do it every day.
Yes.
And I noticed that as much as I do these practices and I go within, it helped me to connect with people better and really connect, not just talk to people, but feel them and love them. Mm-hmm. And it's just, this is growing by me doing those practices. Because I can let go of all those baggages.
You know, I'm a passionate person. So I feel strong emotions. And in expanding my emotional vocabulary, I'm learning about the different emotions, why these emotions are so strong for certain people at certain times. And it's understanding what is happening in the universe around what I asked the universe for and around me. And I guess, you know, because love is the strongest emotion, because love is the strongest emotion, I create. And so even if something is like painful and hard, there's still love in it, because that love allows the articulating, the understanding over and under understanding, you know? So sometimes I feel such strong emotions and I'm trying to figure out, what does it actually mean? And the majority of the time, it's because it's always in black and white, like the picture behind you. And it's unpacking how to make those strong emotions become what they are. They give birth to something, and it's allowing that birth to happen without, this is where men fall a lot, because our emotional development has been stunted a lot because of patriarchy. Yeah. Patriarchy has brought toxic masculinity, and toxic masculinity makes us equate everything to our prime evil instinct. And our prime evil instinct reduces us to something that is not empowering. And it's just understanding those strong, like when you have a strong attraction to a certain female, male, and you want to understand what is going on. Is it that I'm just sexually, physically, mentally, spiritually, what is going on? Is it because there's something that the spirit, the universe is connecting at a level, and I just haven't been able to tune in to that frequency? And the frequency I must go to is through meditation and vulnerability and just giving up the mind. But it's for us to find out, or to get to a place where we can be willing to be that vulnerable. Yeah. And protecting ourselves, being defensive doesn't allow that. So I'm just telling you that these strong emotions, intense emotions, are happening all the time. Like, that's how my life has been. So I have these strong, intense emotions, and I'm wanting to discover why. And when I don't, my world doesn't work. Things don't work. Yeah. So it's just expanding my emotions as a man in a toxic world, but allowing my understanding to be broader, in a world that doesn't want it to be broad.
So I totally agree with you. It makes me sad when I talk to friends, male friends, that they say they are not able to cry. They are not able to feel. It's their heart is closed, and it's I don't know, because maybe because of all this labeling. Even they say to the women, "You're so emotional." That's my strength.
That is the strength. Without emotion, there's commotion. And, it's like a single reaction, emotion. What they can understand, they react with aggression. Instead of unpacking, it's almost like a stunted understanding. It's almost like arrested development. And that is how the Prussian style of education molded the people, predominantly the people in Ulster. And Ireland, of course, you have a very subservient, obedient people. There's a minority that challenge things and they keep things moving. The ideas people, they keep reimagining things. And they are very important, even though they are not always recognized, but they're there, the artists. Thou art, we're creating and we're not necessarily imitating, but the world needs us to be challenging the reality and inventing new reality. Brave.
I think this awareness is growing.
It is.
It is growing.
But it needs us now to follow through with action and actual, when people see what is possible and they say, how did that happen? And you just show them how simple it was and that they can also do it. And suddenly the gate opens.
Yeah.
I was with this weekend I was filming a documentary about the history of Irish and American dance and music in the last 1,000 years, and how Irish dance influenced American dance and how African dance and how Persian, Berber, all these different dances came and created all these different dances in this world that we know as popular culture. And I was dancing and Liam O'Manley from the Hot House Flowers was playing harp. And he just started playing something else than what we were supposed to do. And it was an air. Now, normally Irish people don't dance to airs because they're slow and they're sad and they're melancholic. So people don't dance to them, they just listen to them. So I decided, I'm going to dance. And again, I was able to experience something interesting. And then Liam came up to me and he says, you know what, Tura? I think you've opened up another gate there. We have to open doors. We have to open doors and we have to be willing to walk into those doors. And when we walk into those doors, have a sense of integrity that enables us to see things clearly. And I think integrity allows clarity.
I love that. You learn Irish language.
I did.
What inspired you to learn the language?
My grandmother said, now you're going to a country where they speak a different language. If you want to connect with their heart, their soul, their essence, you speak their language. Make sure you learn Irish and you'll speak to them in their heart. So that's what I
So
followed.
you learned it in Ireland or when?
When I came to Ireland, I looked for lessons, but couldn't find any for years.
Yeah, that's why it's very interesting to me, because not many people speak the Irish language fluently. They learn at school, some learn, some don't. Mm-hmm. But even everybody where speak English here, you start learning the language. And that's why it's very fascinating to me.
I guess, when you know how your mind works and you know how to learn. I think the gift of education is knowing how to learn and knowing the feelings and the sensations that go in yourself when you're learning, and to recognize them and not to fall for the traps that go on in the mind when you're learning. Usually, I'm not good, or I've just made a mistake, or I'm not smart enough, or, those noises, head noise, and just recognizing them and just giving up telling yourself stories or inventing problems where there aren't. And I guess as an artist, I dance, and I learned the dance language as also speaking English. But I realized that maybe, you know, sometimes you just gotta not care. And to get to that point where you don't care is what I really strive for. And like everybody else, I am held back by society's norms and everything. And really, inside, my soul is on fire. My soul is burning, and there is things about me that I could share with the world, but the world has not yet come, or part of the world has not arrived there yet. We have to drag them kicking. Yeah. To drag them kicking.
Yeah. I'm wondering, because you're very open with your emotion, with vulnerability and all, but did you had any embarrassing moment?
I had this really nice pair of trousers, and I was 4, and my mom bought them, but they were too tight now. They couldn't fit. And I spent hours and hours trying to zip the trousers. I'll never forget this. My grandmother was sitting with a group of ladies, and they were talking, whatever they were talking. And I went to my grandmother with the zip lodged on my private parts. I've never told anybody that story. So my granny says, I said, Granny. And my granny says, what's wrong? And I said, oh, Granny. My hand, and one of the ladies says, oh, one of her friends said what had happened. Says, oh, I think. And then I made my way to my granny, and they looked and they said, we're going to have to get a razor.
That must be terrifying.
It was pain. I was terrifying, all right? It was, I can laugh about it. That moment, woo, I was 4. And it was just, the trousers were so good. They were so nice. My mom had bought them. And I was determined to get into those trousers. And I still have the scar till today. And the scar was I've actually not actually talked about this with anyone. And I'm actually finding myself unpacking it as I speak to you.
Well, you were 4.
I was 4. Yeah, I was 4. And I can laugh about it now because my grandmother's friends, they laughed at their heads out. They had a giggle. And I'm actually not myself when I'm laughing. I'm actually them. And when I'm talking about it, because it must have looked so funny. This little 4-year-old, you know.
I want to just ask you this. You're the founder of RTE. Artifric.
Yes.
You're the founder of the Artifric.
Yes.
So what do you do there?
Artifric, you know, in 1995, I set up an organization called the Northern Ireland African Cultural Center. And I got a few people involved. And one of the people who came from somewhere in Nigeria, I can't remember where he came from, he wouldn't relinquish the positions. He wanted to hog the whole organization. And he wouldn't let things that I was suggesting, art, culture, and things sort of happen. And he was frustrating the ability for expression. And in 95, I realized that in order to actually do something honest and free and yourself, you have to just set up your own stuff. So in 96, I set up Art Freak. Art, because I just love art. And freak is, I found out later that freak also means money. So make money through art. It was a coincidence. I didn't know, but it just so happens that is the meaning. And it's French, fric, le fric. And some people would also see it as something to do with Africa, fric, Afrique.
Yeah.
And some people think it's to do with Arutura, my name, A-R-T, you know. Yeah. I guess it's just, I wanted to create a platform where I could do art, culture, and arts without being told what to do or being restricted by certain people, you know. A vehicle, and vehicle for movement, dance, vehicle for music. Afric Records, I released my own music for productions, theater productions, Afric productions, theater, so I can do my own. And I don't need the Arts Council to do what I want to do. I just do it, and I just put it out there. Because a lot of the times I found that getting money from people and their stipulations and requests and requirements just did not allow me to be myself. And they made me work so that I was going to bring Protestants and Catholics together. I just want to do my art. I just want to do art. You know, I don't want to be involved in this because that's what you want me to do in order for me to get the money. I just want to do art.
I just want to be an artist. Yeah,
that's it.
Simple.
you know.
So you also teach and coach. Where people can find you?
So I have a new website coming up called turaarutura.com. But I'm on Facebook, like, you know, and all the social media. My feeling at the minute is I want to create experiences, and that require collaboration with other people. And that requires an economy that is not just about me, that is of other people, and enable people to come into a place where they're totally immersed in the theater of the performance and they're involved in it as well. Nothing too complex, just simple, and they're part of the experience. Whether the journey that they go through to get to the venue is part of the artistic experience, whether the surroundings, the incense, the smells that they get at certain intervals in the performance is part of the performance. And I guess I find the art creative world within this a bit restrictive, a bit unimaginative.
Yeah.
And not concerned with like authenticity of experience. It's like, you know, you can enjoy art and then later on you can go out and do whatever, you know. Oh, wasn't that a lovely show, darling? No. I think art should really, when you leave that room, something about you has happened. There's a shift somewhere. You've got something, and it's not because of what you have seen, but it's because of what you have given and what you have received in that experience together. And instead of this voyeuristic, artistic sort of, you know?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to see what you do.
I'm imagining collaborative, you know, work that is about creating experiences, but the experiences are not only challenging and provoking, but allow people within their own journey to discover something.
Yeah.
It's just discover something, you know, if they can have a eureka moment, if they can have a Nasri moment.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to talk about that I didn't ask you?
How many kids do you have?
How many?
Kids.
Kids. Unfortunately, I don't have kids.
So, you know why?
Why?
Because you're a channel for the gods.
I am.
You are. You are. And this is something that is a very sacred honor in our culture. And we call them our sisters. The shamans, we call them our sisters because they have a certain insight that you just can't get from just Tom, Dick, and Harry, from just anybody. You see, I've got some literature in our ancient tradition where certain women who were gifted would be gifted with certain knowledge, insight, and wisdom. And these women they know, they're called the Dziwa priestesses in our family. And they are creative, but they are the sisters of the gods, you know, yeah. And our culture is so fragmented because now people look to another reality for making sense of the world. And these realities are quite dysfunctional. And that is why my desire is a return to the source. All the time, I'm just returning to the source. I'm going back to the source and scratching the source and being vulnerable. I cry a lot.
You also made me emotional.
You felt my spirit.
Yeah. I do meditate before I start talking to artists. I ground and with the light and roots on the ground. And I feel that then I can connect with you, with your heart. And then we both together connect with people who listen to us. That's my intention. So I come to the interview with the intention to be able to connect with you and then connect with everybody. So it's a long journey.
We've done that. Have you heard of Landmark Forum?
No.
It's a course that I did. It's a personal development course I did a few years ago, about 8 years ago. And then I did there's a leadership part of it, which was like 6 months. And I was 4 weeks into the leadership course. And I was supposed to go to London for the weekend of the course. And I just sabotaged myself not to go. I just made it difficult for me to go.
What happened then?
I created all sorts of obstacles. And the reason why I was creating obstacles is I was confronted by something that was a long time memory from somewhere. And this long time memory tells me, be careful. If this thing is run by these people, you're only a pawn in a game. And I was fighting that narrative. And it was a story that I told myself. But as somebody said, there could be an element of that story that is true. And at this moment, as I ask for the remains of my great ancestor to be returned back to our home, I think the coach tried to tell me that I was making this up and that I was just supposed to find a way out of it and stop making the story up. But I've got to the point now in my life where I understand that there is other people in my lineage whose healing I am engaged in. So all these other ancestors, I have to give them time within myself to heal. And just recognizing how I exhibit those family traumas and to try and find some way of healing those traumas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe when we heal, others heal with us.
Mm. It's, you know, in the last few years, I've really got to understand that Shano's dance and my own traditional dance, they're like really the same dance, just different parts of the world, different times, but the desires, the sensations, the feelings are the same. And the energy is the same. And I've even started to realize the sounds are the same. I don't mean sounds in terms of music or in terms of the singing, but even the sounds in the language. There's certain sounds that are in my culture. They sound and feel a certain way. And in Irish, they feel and they sound and mean the same thing. You know, like in my language, we have this word called rara. Rara. And rara is to sleep. Like ra ra. Ra ra. That's when we sleep, we are in our godly state to dream. And the god, sun god of Ra, 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 and you've got this name, Ka, which means an object. In my language, Ka is the prefix for an object, Ka. And then Kara, object of a friend, object of godness, object of godness. I don't know, in your language, what does Ka mean?
Ka.
When do you use Ka?
Ka, it's a close sound to grass when it dries, like a bale. Ka. But we have Lala for sleep.
You've got what?
For sleeping. It's Lala,
yes?
or Lala.
Lala.
Yeah. It's
Rara.
they sing it to the child when they go to sleep.
Rara, Lala, Rara, Lala.
Yeah.
We are connecting the development of sound, and we are connecting genes and development of our civilization through sounds and not through language. And I guess that's why it's now becoming easy for us to learn language, because we know that they're sounds, they're feelings. And with these sounds, as we go deeper, we realize that these sounds and meanings have come from feelings that have been attached to sounds. Lala.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's very interesting. Mm-hmm. You know, you said that I do have a Persian accent. I know a lot of people come out of country and they want to speak like English as a English accent in UK or in US, but I never had that desire. I wanted to have my accent. I didn't want to practice to lose it, because the sound of it was, for me, was something that it was me.
Your voice, the voice of your ancestors.
Yeah.
The voice of generations that have come all the way. And I guess we are lucky in the sense that, you know, we are surrounded by European culture, and we can be in that space and be to that space, true to that space, but with just being ourselves. And I hear a lot of people, like you say, who come, I've now become, I can gauge how long somebody has been in Belfast based on how they speak. If they're from different parts of the world, you know, I can tell when the way the accent, I can tell whether, you know, if they're Nigerian and the way they speak with the Irish, I can tell where they are in their journey of integration or assimilation. Yeah.
But it's so
Those
funny
techniques.
when I watch a movie with a North Ireland accent,
Yes.
I can copy that, but with
Perfect.
Dublin accent, I can't.
With a Dublin accent. Try. Let's see. Oh, how do you say brutal, brutal, brutal?
Brutal.
You have to change your tongue and your mouth. so 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 so
Brutal.
the you're nearly there. So when I teach dance, I don't teach people steps anymore. I used to teach people steps and choreography. Now I teach them to capture the emotion, the spirit of the movement, the spirit of the dance. And I spend more time now capturing the feelings associated with the movement. And like, I guess I've gone full circle because I hadn't realized that each movement had to have a feeling. But now I know.
Wow. I'm going to bring awareness to this because I sometimes when I walk, I do some kind of dance, but sometimes
Mm-hmm.
my partner thinks it's very funny. He laughs. And but I never noticed that it could have some kind of emotion in those.
Mm-hmm.
So
This is the triggers. And I guess with movement, we trigger so many emotions, dances. A lot of the dances that I've been inspired by, quite a lot of them are women. So when I move, I can move like a woman. And I guess these feelings are only available, understanding of these feelings of movement are only available to those who've experienced and who've looked in, so not looked, but who've experienced the sensations of that movement. And being aware when you're feeling them, when you're doing them. I guess it's the awareness that connects us to the movement.
from now on, every time I dance, I will bring that awareness to see every moment, how it feels.
There's the Navajo, they have a saying, when you see us dance, you see our spirit.
Yeah.
When you see us dance, you see our spirit. The first time I saw Shanos dance, I was surprised. I said, what's this? Do you mean Irish people can be so free and flexible and this is Shanos. This is the most ancient dance in Ireland. And this is what we were banned from doing. And I said, wow, I want to learn that.
They were banned.
They were banned. In Ireland, there was the laws were put to ban the language, the culture, the praying, the religion, and the performance of music. Literally, the British banned it, and the church helped to enforce it. So you've got such.
You get you get the spirit out of people. You can control them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I was asked to do a speech when the Pope came in 2019, and my speech was my gift of freedom. And I know what I've got from Ireland. I know what Ireland has given me, and I'm consciously aware of what Ireland can teach me. So I literally go consciously to say, this is what I'm going to engage. This is what I'm going to do. These are the type of people who I'm going to work with. And I do it. I choose who I do what I do with, because I've got to the point in my realization that I am the maker of my life. I create my life.
Yeah. Every moment.
Every moment. Every moment. But in Ireland, you see, when people have gone through what they've gone through in Ireland, and they've managed to keep the core essence of who they are in whatever dysfunctional shape or form, but they've managed to keep it together. And most importantly, we have the return of the matriarch. I strongly believe that we have now entered the age of Aquarius in some perception, but we really have entered the age of the matriarch. Until you have woman at the center of creation, you have nothing. The whole narratives, the whole, even how you invent, how the process of invention works is distorted by such perceptions. When before they started doing slavery in the UK, in England, they made witching laws. So witching laws were in 1562. And then 1563, they started to do slavery. So first you destroy the woman and then you destroy your moral compass. Your cosmic moral link is broken. And that's why I was talking to somebody, England doesn't create new music. England is just rehatching music they're taking from there. There's nothing you can say is English, The mummies they stole from Egypt, they are in the museum. All this bounty that has been stolen is what fills the museums. Things stolen from Benin, from all over the world, is what fills these museums. Not actually things that enhance humanity or them. How can anybody take a skull from Africa and put it in a museum? It doesn't add up.
So you have to laugh.
No, you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. And then at the end of it, expect that type of a person to give you solutions for addressing your trauma and your heart dysfunction, spiritual dysfunction.
Oh, they don't understand. No,
it could never. And we are mad for expecting it.
Yeah.
We are actually worse for actually thinking that it could actually come from somebody who's actually done that. No, it can't. And that's why you, as a creator, as an artist, we are able to imagine a new reality and stubbornly do so and create a new reality of our lives, a life that we want to live. And if anybody doesn't like it, they can look inside and just look and say, I wish my life was as good as that. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, being free is more what people want, to dance and to create. What could be better than that?
I believe everybody who lives not from fear, live life fearlessly.
Yes. Are you fearless?
I have a lot of awareness. So if I do something based on fear, I catch myself. No, I'm not totally 100% fearless, but I have a strong awareness that if I do something based on fear, I catch it and I bring awareness to it. That's what I do.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Fear is a good feeling as long as you can observe it. For some, it's just something that it's just a whole lot of sensations, sweating glands and heart pulsating. And
it's a bit complicated because if you say I want to do something, is it based on fear or is not? It's easy for me. But if it's something from the past or childhood or a trauma is in my body, because we keep all those in our body. And then if in a situation, my body starts reacting or I get overwhelmed or I feel something that it's not good, then I feel that there is a fear there, which is from a past event. That's why I'm saying I'm not 100%. But if you doing these interviews for me was very hard because I heard a lot of time people say, oh, you don't speak English very well. Like people from my own country that they don't speak English very well. But you see, it doesn't matter how I speak English. I can communicate with people. So that was for me. In a moment, I said to myself, if you are not going to do this, it's based on the fear. So I started doing it.
Perfect. Overcoming the fear.
Yeah. It's like, you don't have control over me now.
No. No. And I guess, living in, where I live, I've surrounded myself with the people that did what they did to my people.
Yeah.
Like I don't know deliberately but whatever way it's ended up happening, I've ended up being amongst the people that did what they did to, like completely surrounded by them. And I've had to become friends with them. And some of them discover certain things for whatever purpose for their life. But in my healing, fear is the way that we were controlled. And the experiences that I had as a child, there's a lot of fear that was invented and created. And so I still have those fears, but now I have an added advantage. I can recognize them, like you say, like you do, and I guess it's through deciding to do work on myself. I have a lot of fear. I know my heart, the feelings is my heart pulsates. But then I've had to learn of, whenever you are meditating or this state of mind where you just, instead of seeing things just ahead or too close, you just spread the eyes to see just beyond the horizon.
Yeah.
And usually that's the best decision maker for me. Just beyond the horizon. Symphony.
Sometimes I even give up making decision. I say that I let it go and wait to hear the answer. And then somehow, somewhere, when I'm sitting on the grass, I have an intuition that it's just something click, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this now this way. It just come to me. But it comes to me when I keep quiet. I'm not struggling with it, or I'm not fighting with it, or don't want to force it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that flow. That flow is what I meditate to as well, to have that. Last week was one of the busiest weeks I've had. I was doing a film shoot for Dungeons and Dragons, and then I went to do a documentary in Dingle, and all that in the last 4 weeks. And I just said to myself, what is it that enabled those things to happen? Was I was open to possibilities. And I'm open to possibilities. I'm open to living a life of fulfillment, a life that is fulfilled, and being fearless and bold.
Yeah. And I believe as we as individuals start living from that state without fear, that become our collective
consciousness.
Collective consciousness. We're changing it.
Yes. But I think maybe we need more. This word is been taken by different, communion. When you are sharing each other's talents and gifts in a way that celebrates life and enables others to find themselves. So that's why, you know, doing this is, to me, it seems like a natural progression in meeting you and getting to know you, because we can only understand each other by talking. And sometimes I didn't even know that, not sometimes, a lot of the times I don't even know what I'm going to say until I say it.
Yeah.
So I haven't planned anything. And I guess to be authentic all the time is what I strive for. And you have that ability to bring that out as you speak. And I guess, thank you.
I had really amazing time with you. I learned a lot from you, and I had fun. I get emotional. I enjoyed this. I don't know how long we are talking, but it's just the time flew by, and I really appreciate your time. And
you're a great spirit, and it's only natural because you give. It's so easy to give.
thank you.
Thank you.